What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com.
Here are my DFS picks for NFL Week 16 sleepers and studs.
These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button
And hit that bell icon.
so you don't miss our new videos.
In this video, I'm going to go over my top picks for this week's NFL slate. And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made. Okay guys, NFL Week 16. Let's take a look at the quarterback position. So my quarterback stud is Justin Herbert from the LA Chargers playing the Houston Texans, who have the 5th worst defense overall. And although they've been pretty good versus opposing quarterbacks, Justin Herbert has averaged 25.2 fantasy points per game on the season. He's getting an average of 3.8 rush attempts per game. He's going to be about 8% owned, projected at 23.4 fantasy points here in Week 16. He's $7,200 DraftKings salary and $1,200 more on FanDuel. So Vegas thinks there's going to be 46 points scored in this game, with the Chargers favored by 10.5. Justin Herbert has scored 24, 25, and 29 fantasy points in the last 3 games off of 5, 4, and 1 rush attempts. So I like Justin Herbert in this game. He's been a stud. Let's see what his last 5 games are. He scored 24, 25, 29, 25, and 38 fantasy points in his last 5 games. All his pass catchers are healthy and good to go. And he's got a pretty good matchup, even though the Houston Texans have been pretty good against quarterbacks. I think he's going to have a good rushing floor in this game. So I like Justin Herbert here versus the Houston Texans. Okay, my sleeper pick at the quarterback position is Joe Burrow from the Cincinnati Bengals playing the Baltimore Ravens, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they give up the 6th most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. Joe Burrow has averaged 19.2 fantasy points per game on the season, and he gets an average of 2.4 rush attempts per game. He's going to be about 4% owned, projected at 19.6 fantasy points here in Week 16. He's $5,900 DraftKings salary, $1,200 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 45 points scored in this game, with the Bengals favored by 3.5. So Joe Burrow has scored 13, 25, and 23 fantasy points in the last 3 games. So he's pretty low salary here. He's got a great matchup, and he's got that 25 plus fantasy point upside if he gets going. So I like Joe Burrow here versus the Baltimore Ravens.
Before I continue with the picks, I'm excited today because we added a new contest for everyone watching.
If you want to enter the drawing for $100 PayPal,
All you need to do is like this video, hit that subscribe button, and make a quick comment below to be entered into the drawing. We'll reply to a random comment and let you know that you won.
and then we'll send you $100 PayPal.
So it's that easy.
And we pick a new winner every Saturday and announce them in our video.
So get your comment in now so I can add another entry for you.
Okay, let's take a look at the running back position. A lot of questionable players on this slate here this week, but this guy's healthy and good to go, and he's got some monster upside, although he's been struggling lately. I like Cordell Patterson from the Atlanta Falcons playing the Detroit Lions, who have the 3rd worst defense overall, and they give up the 2nd most fantasy points to opposing running backs. Cordell Patterson has averaged 17.2 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 10.2 rush attempts per game and 4.9 pass targets per game. He's going to be about 9% owned, projected at 16.6 fantasy points here in week 16. He's 6,700 DraftKings salary and 500 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 42.5 points scored in this game, with the Falcons favored by 5.5. Now, Cordell Patterson has scored 4, 14, 13, and 31 fantasy points in his last 4 games. So he's got that 30-plus fantasy point upside. He's got a fantastic matchup. You're getting a wide receiver and a running back in one player. So I like Cordell Patterson here versus the Detroit Lions. Okay, my sleeper pick at the running back position is Justin Jackson from the LA Chargers playing the Houston Texans, who have the 5th worst defense overall, and they give up the 3rd most fantasy points to opposing running backs. Justin Jackson is now going to be the number 1 running back for the Chargers, and last game he scored 11 fantasy points off of 13 rush attempts and 1 pass target. Now he's also going to be sharing the ball with Joshua Kelly, who got 7 rush attempts. So it looks like Justin Jackson is getting a bulk of the carries, and he can catch the ball out of the backfield. Even though he doesn't get a ton of pass targets, he'll get a few. He's only going to be about 2% owned, projected at 12 fantasy points here in week 16. He's 4,200 DraftKings salary and 1,200 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 46 points scored in this game, with the Chargers favored by 10.5. So if you think the Chargers are going to take a big lead, like a 2-touchdown lead here on the Texans, which I think they are going to take a big lead in this game, I think it's going to be a running game script, and it's a fantastic matchup. So you're going to get a low salary running back that's got some pretty good upside here. So I like Justin Jackson here versus the Houston Texans. Okay, let's take a look at the wide receiver position. My wide receiver stud is just impossible to ignore this guy at this point. I like Cooper Kupp from the LA Rams playing the Minnesota Vikings, who have the 2nd worst defense overall, and they give up the absolute most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. Cooper Kupp has averaged 28.4 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 11.7 pass targets per game. He's going to be about 29% owned, projected at 27.1 fantasy points here in week 16. He's 9,100 DraftKings salary, 700 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 49 points scored in this game, with the Rams favored by 3.5. Now, Cooper Kupp just been on absolute fire throughout the whole season. This guy is playing out of his mind this season. The yards after the catch, just unbelievable to watch this guy in action. And he scored 38, 34, and 30 fantasy points in the last 3 games off of 13, 15, and 10 pass targets. So I like Cooper Kupp here versus the Minnesota Vikings.
Real quick guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all the tools for NFL. NBA is right around the corner. This is a great time to get in and try everything for 1 month. The tools are all about saving research time. You can see the last 3 games, the fantasy points per game, the targets they got per game, so you can see how involved they are in the offense, the rushes they got per game. Seeing all this stuff on one screen helps you save time and make better picks. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups.
Okay, my sleeper pick at the wide receiver position is Tyler Boyd from the Cincinnati Bengals playing the Baltimore Ravens, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they give up the 9th most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. Tyler Boyd has averaged 11.1 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 5.9 pass targets per game. He's going to be about 4% owned, projected at 11.3 fantasy points here in week 16. He's 5,100 DraftKings salary and 1,100 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 45 points scored in this game, with the Bengals favored by 3.5. So I like this pick here because you got a pretty good matchup, a close competitive game, and Tyler Boyd's been pretty good all season long. He scored 21, 10, and 14 fantasy points in the last 3 games off of 6, 5, and 7 pass targets. So I like Tyler Boyd here versus the Baltimore Ravens. Okay, let's take a look at the tight end position. My tight end stud is Rob Gronkowski from the Tampa Bay Bucks playing the Carolina Panthers, who have a good defense overall. They've been good versus opposing tight ends. Rob Gronkowski has averaged 14.6 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 7.4 pass targets per game. He's going to be about 10% owned, projected at 13.7 fantasy points here in week 16. He's 6,200 DraftKings salary, 500 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 43 points scored in this game, with the Tampa Bay Bucks favored by 10. Okay, so Leonard Fournette is out, and you got to keep an eye on the injury status of Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Both of those guys were injured last week, so they're going to be questionable or out. So Rob Gronkowski is going to be like the lone healthy target here. He could get some monster targets in this game, and I'm talking about like 15 targets maybe. So I just think Rob Gronkowski and Tom Brady, they could light it up here versus the Carolina Panthers. So I like Rob Gronkowski here versus the Carolina Panthers. Okay, my tight end sleeper pick is Noah Fant from the Denver Broncos playing the Las Vegas Raiders, who have the 6th worst defense overall. They give up the 2nd most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. Noah Fant has averaged 9.9 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 5.9 pass targets per game. He's on the field for 81% of the snaps, only going to be about 3% owned, projected at 8.9 fantasy points here in week 16. He's 4,400 DraftKings salary, 1,200 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 41.5 points scored in this game, with the Broncos favored by 1. So I like this pick because he's pretty low salary here, and it's going to be a close, competitive game. He's got a fantastic matchup. He got 6 pass targets last game, so I think he can get 6 to 8 pass targets in this game and crush value here. So I like Noah Fant here versus the Las Vegas Raiders.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smickety smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NFL slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again, and good luck.